Mr. Laszlo Bartha is an ethologist, who has been breeding and working with large livestock guardian shepherd dogs with decades. In the past 15 years he has lived in Sakiefold, which is situated in eastern Transylvania. This small region is very special in our days, as on this small region, there are more wolves and bears are living wildly and freely than in whole Western and Central Europe combined. In this region it is completely prohibited to hunt, or kill these predators. Only livestock guardian shepherd dogs can keep them away from the sheep flocks that are gazed in big numbers in the mountainous pastures where they are grazing. These dogs work like as if they were living in the age when shepherd dogs were invented and used in big numbers. After the Caucasian shepherds, there came the Central Asian shepherds, who, at least in Europe, replaced the Caucasians many times and quite frequently. What are good to know in connection with them and how they stand their ground as LGD dogs, according to your experiences?
The Central Asian Shepherd, as I mentioned in the former part, is an artificial name, which was created by the Russians. In their case, to formulate a new breed, the Russians brought dogs not from the Caucasian region, but from many Central Asian territories. They found good dogs in these regions and exported them to Russian territories and cities, where they began to formulate a new, in quotes, breed and gave them this name. The Central Asian plateau is almost as big as whole Europe, or even bigger, and this is why it is completely unbelievable that there was one type of dog, the real Central Asian Shepherd. It is a vast region and all nations who lived there has one, or more type of dogs who they liked, or dealt with for centuries, or even more time. These dogs were not raised in this region as breeds, as Western type of breeds have not existed there, but rather like a dog type, or dog population. Because of many reasons, the Russians kept the Turkmeni and Alabai type as one of the outstanding dog population. One reason for this can be that the Turkmenians, who live in Turkmenistan, has a special, very talented breeding culture and instincts in a way. Let's think of their very special, world-famous Akeltik horses. All nations around the world have special talents. Let's think for example for the horse breeding talent of the Native American Comanche tribe. So the Russians noticed it, and in majority, they wrote their official standard of the Central Asian Shepherd, what became their new shepherd dog breed, about basically the Alabais. Even the Russians themselves write and say many times that they found the most valuable dogs among the Alabais. They wrote them down, and this way they created a standard, which became the basic of their breeding efforts. So they collected a lot of dogs from this region and began a program, in which they tried to narrow mainly the outlook of the dogs down to the standard. They tried to homogenize these dogs and began to sell them and marketing them as a new Russian shepherd dog, or LGD dog breed, although they did not breed them and used them as shepherd dogs. Fortunately for the Central Asian shepherds, they did not take them to the direction what happened to the Caucasians, so these dogs did not become only guard and military dogs. This how a kind of urban, in quotes, civilized breeding began. As the basis of this breeding were shepherd dogs, who were selected for long centuries to work perfectly as LGDs, this new Russian breed did not get into the direction of diverging so far from the LGD traits, like for example, the contra-selected Caucasian shepherds. These dogs had and have a very robust and rugged outlook, and they began to become more and more popular, first in Eastern Europe, and then all over Europe, and then worldwide. Many people who wanted to have tough working dogs were fed up with end products of the absolutely show-oriented Western dog types, and began to be interested in the Central Asian shepherds. As a consequence, a kind of in-breed specialization began very early, with three main breeding goals. One of them was the specialization for dog shows, where the only goal was to formulate very nice-looking dogs. In this trend, the character and working abilities were not important anymore. I have to admit that the second specialization was to breed these dogs for successful dog fights. And the third was to create tough guard dogs that can be used solely for guarding territories and properties. If you think it over, a good LGD, or shepherd dog in its working phase in their natural surroundings should partly fulfill all of these traits. First, they are usually impressive animals in their rudeness and authenticity. Secondly, at the Asian steppe tribes, the best shepherd's dogs had to prove themselves against other dogs, as at that times and in these circles. This was the way how the best males were selected to mate with bitches, and shepherd dogs also had to have territorial aggression in them. If they don't, anybody can come close to the herd they guard, take a lamb and go away. But in a good shepherd dog, it is a package. All of them have to be in a dog to become a real working dog. In spite of this, in Western type of breeding, specialization is king. There was no need for such a complex dog, nor the breeder, nor did the average buyer take care about it. The majority of the breeders thought that why should they deal with the character, if the dog is nice? They can be champions, they can get good money for the puppies. To tell you the truth, for good shepherd dogs, the shows themselves are a very serious contra-selection and drawback. Why? If you take your dog to a show, the dog should let the judge touch his mouth and teeth, which is a complete nonsense for an LGD dog. For a normal shepherd dog with good instincts, it is a norm that a stranger cannot put his hand into the dog's mouth, or even close to that. This is one of the contra-selective factors. The other is that in the ring, it's forbidden for the dogs to growl at each other. What is happening in a show? There is a small ring, where usually 5 to 10 dominant males are packed close to each others. Of course, the organizers try to save on space costs. These giant-sized, dominant dogs are close to each other's, see and smell each other's. And they are expected and denied to growl at each other's. And what is the worst of all is that a good, dominant shepherd dog do not back down from another and never, I emphasize it, never, run away from another dominant male. Let's think of the empathy level of the judges, who judge these dogs. They expect them to trot around, one after another in a school order. Let's think for example for a 4-year-old, dominant adult male, who fought his own way up the ladder in a pack. How can this dog feel that he runs and another dominant male is, in quotes, chasing him from the back from some feet distance? How is it that the organizers do not feel and know the instincts of these dogs? The one who trots first wants to turn back and defend himself. The one who goes after the first sees that he is running away from me and he wants to catch it. It is unbelievable to see how much I see these shows. I am always astonished. Those shepherd dogs who can fit in the show environment have already lost the majority of their ancient natural instincts. And these are the ones who become champions, will have puppies and leave their genes for the oncoming generations. Everybody should understand that these are different dogs with different virtue set and tasks. You cannot expect from them what you expect, for example, from Golden Retrievers or King Charles Spaniels. This is unbelievable in the Central Asian Shepherd breeding. You see a lot of dogs who are becoming less and less capable for work, and they are getting bigger and bigger in every generation, because the public desires it and the market makes it fanciful. I see Central Asian Shepherds on shows, whose heads are as big as a bucket, but if you look at them, you see that their teeth are very small. My Italian clients, who come to me to buy dogs, are constantly begging for Central Asian Shepherds that I could give them 20 to 25 years ago, because those were the real good Central Asian Shepherds. And we cannot give them, whatever we do, as we find these dino-sized show dogs, who are absolutely unfit for effective work, partly because of their characters, partly because of their size. They do not have the stamina, the endurance, they are not agile, and they cannot be used for anything. The other specialization direction is the breeding these dogs for dog fights. As it is a very sad and long story, I would not like to talk about it now, but maybe in a different part that is about why mankind used and uses dog fights up until our days. The third breeding specialization direction is the guard dog selection and breeding. Unfortunately, this is the less numerous, although it would be much better than any of the former mentioned ones. There are very good guard dogs among the Central Asian Shepherd population, and luckily, they are not as hyper-aggressive like the Caucasian Shepherds. Although specialization for one sole purpose is still very far from the complexity of shepherd or livestock guardian dogs, amongst the three I mentioned, this would be the, in quotes, best for this breed.